You take whatever you can get, man. You never know when the last one is going to be. So cherish them all. Trust me. Those were the last words Kyle Busch ever spoke on camera after a race win. He said them on May 15, 2026, standing in victory lane at Dover Motor Speedway after winning the Craftsman Truck Series race. 6 days later, he was dead. Nobody in that moment, not the reporter, not the crew, not the millions watching, understood the full weight of what they had just heard. That is where this story begins. On the morning of Thursday, May 21, 2026, the NASCAR world was preparing for another normal race week. Charlotte Motor Speedway weekend was coming up. The Coca-Cola 600, the longest race on the NASCAR calendar at 600 miles, was 3 days away. Drivers were traveling, teams were prepping, and everything felt routine. Then a statement appeared on Kyle Busch's official X account, and one single word in that statement stopped the entire sport cold. The statement read, "Kyle has experienced a severe illness resulting in hospitalization. He is currently undergoing treatment and will not compete in any of his scheduled activities this weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. We ask for understanding and privacy as our family navigates this situation." That word, severe, carried a weight that every person who read it immediately felt. Families do not use that word in public statements unless they are dealing with something that genuinely frightens them. There was no diagnosis given. No timeline. No reassurance that everything would be fine. Just that word, and the silence around it. Shortly after, Richard Childress Racing announced that Austin Hill, the team's full-time O'Reilly Auto Parts Series driver, would replace Busch in the number 8 Chevrolet at Charlotte. That announcement made the situation feel even more serious. Within hours, the worst happened. Later that same Thursday, the Busch family, Richard Childress Racing, and NASCAR issued a joint statement confirming what nobody wanted to believe. Kyle Busch had died. The statement read, "On behalf of the Busch family, everyone at Richard Childress Racing and all of NASCAR, we are devastated to announce the sudden and tragic passing of Kyle Busch. Our entire NASCAR family is heartbroken by the loss of Kyle Busch. A future Hall of Famer, Kyle was a rare talent, one who comes along once in a generation. He was fierce, he was passionate, he was immensely skilled, and he cared deeply about the sport and fans." No cause of death was given. The sport was left to process that loss in silence. The reactions from the garage came immediately. Brad Keselowski posted, "Absolute shock. Very hard to process." Denny Hamlin, his former Joe Gibbs Racing teammate, wrote, "Absolutely cannot comprehend this news. We just need to think of his family during this time. We love you, KB." Ricky Stenhouse Jr. said, "There aren't really words for today. I've raced against Kyle for a long time, and anyone who's lined up next to him knows exactly what made him special. He gave you everything he had, every single lap, and he made all of us better for it. Rest easy, Rowdy. The sport won't be the same without you." And Clint Bowyer, who had been a rival of Busch for years across the sport, posted just 5 words that said more than any paragraph could: "I just talked to him Friday." NASCAR confirmed the Coca-Cola 600 would go on as scheduled that Sunday. That is exactly what Kyle Busch himself would have wanted. To understand the magnitude of what NASCAR lost on that Thursday, you have to understand who Kyle Busch actually was, because no single driver in the history of the sport has ever done what he did. Kyle Thomas Busch was born on May 2, 1985, in Las Vegas, Nevada, into a racing family. His father, Tom, was a mechanic. His older brother, Kurt, was 7 years ahead of him and would go on to become a NASCAR Hall of Famer himself. From go-karts in parking lot cul-de-sacs to Legends cars at the Vegas Bullring, Kyle showed from the very beginning that he was different from everyone around him. He was ready to compete at NASCAR's Cup level at 16 years old, but a cigarette advertising settlement that restricted tobacco sponsorship in motorsports blocked his debut, and he had to wait until he was 18. When he finally arrived in 2005, Kurt told the world what was coming: "If you think I'm good, wait until you see my brother." That turned out to be one of the most accurate predictions in the entire history of motorsport. Busch won Rookie of the Year in 2005 and never slowed down. He was not just fast. He was relentless. He was polarizing. He earned the nickname Rowdy early in his career, and he wore it like armor. After wins in front of crowds that mixed cheers with loud boos, Busch would climb out of his car and take a slow, deliberate bow. He knew exactly what role he was playing, he loved it, and the louder the crowds booed, the faster he seemed to go. The numbers he left behind are not just records, they are a category of their own. 234 combined wins across the Cup Series, the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, and the Craftsman Truck Series, the all-time record in NASCAR history, 34 wins ahead of Richard Petty, the man widely considered the greatest stock car driver who ever lived before Busch came along. 63 Cup Series victories, ranking 9th all-time. 102 O'Reilly Auto Parts Series wins, a record. 69 Craftsman Truck Series wins, also a record. A Cup Series race win in 19 consecutive seasons from 2005 through 2023. 2 Cup Series championships in 2015 and 2019. The next closest active driver in combined wins is Kevin Harvick at 121, which means the gap between Busch and the second closest driver is 113 victories. Nobody was in the same conversation. Nobody has ever been. But to understand what made 2026 so devastating in hindsight, you have to look at the season itself, because it did not start with a tragedy. It started with 3 warning signs that nobody recognized until it was too late. Warning 1, before Daytona. Before the 2026 season had even officially started, Busch suffered a serious injury at home. A step stool collapsed while he was fixing a smoke detector. His leg was immediately gushing blood. Samantha, his wife, drove him to the hospital in the middle of the night with his leg propped up on the dashboard, covered in towels. He spent more than 3 hours in emergency treatment and received 24 stitches. Then he showed up at Daytona and raced. Not because anyone told him to. Not because the team required it. Because that was exactly who Kyle Busch was. Warning 2, Watkins Glen, May 11, 2026. With 38 laps remaining in a brutal road course race, Busch picked up his radio and calmly told his crew he was going to need a medical shot after the race. He asked for Dr. William Heil to meet him at his team bus. He had been battling a sinus cold all week, made significantly worse by the intense G-forces and elevation changes at the New York road course. He finished 8th, his best result of the entire 2026 season. He pushed through everything he was physically dealing with and delivered his strongest performance of the year while clearly not operating at full capacity. At the time, that radio call was treated as a testament to his toughness. In hindsight, it was a sign of something far more serious building underneath. Warning 3, Dover, May 15, 2026. Busch won the Truck Series race at Dover Motor Speedway. It was his last victory of any kind. He led 147 laps in a completely dominant performance. When a reporter asked him why winning never gets old, he gave the answer that would haunt everyone who heard it just 6 days later: you take whatever you can get, man. You never know when the last one is going to be. So cherish them all. Trust me. 6 days after those words, he was hospitalized. Hours after that, he was gone. 3 health events. 1 season. The signs were all there, and nobody could read them in time. No story about Kyle Busch is complete without 2015, because that year defined everything he was as a driver and as a person. In February 2015, during the season-opening race at Daytona, Busch suffered a catastrophic crash. His car skidded through the infield and struck an unprotected wall, breaking bones in both of his legs. Doctors said he would be out for 6 months. He was back behind the wheel in 3. He won in his 5th race back. Then he won 3 of the next 4. The rest of the field had a 3-month head start on the championship, and he ran every single one of them down in a matter of weeks. Then, in the final race of the season at Homestead, with his crew anxiously pacing the pit box, Kyle Busch sat calmly inside his car and sang the theme song to his then 6-month-old son Brexton's favorite television show, just to keep himself steady. It worked. He crossed the finish line as the 2015 NASCAR Cup Series champion. His own words afterward: the recovery process, I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to achieve a championship. But it made us mentally stronger and physically stronger. He won his 2nd championship in 2019, and at that point, the legacy was already beyond any reasonable debate. The wins and the records tell part of the story. The human being behind them tells the rest. Samantha Busch was his constant. Through the 2015 leg fractures, through every controversy, through every difficult stretch during his time at Richard Childress Racing. She drove him to the hospital the night before the very season that would end his life, his leg propped on the dashboard covered in towels at 2 in the morning. Brexton, his son who turned 11 the Monday before Kyle died, changed him. Busch openly described how becoming a father in 2015, the same year he broke both legs and won the championship, shifted something fundamental in how he saw the world and what he raced for. Lennox, his 4-year-old daughter, completed the family picture that Busch talked about with genuine pride in his final years of racing. Even his longest-standing rivalries had found resolution by the end. Dale Earnhardt Jr., who had a contentious relationship with Busch for many years, revealed after Kyle's death that the two had been planning to race a late model together at Wilkesboro that very summer. A meeting to fit Busch's seat into the car was scheduled for the Thursday after he died. Earnhardt wrote, "Kyle and I had a really challenging existence for many years, but we luckily took the time to figure out our differences, and that was something he instigated with a conversation in his bus around how we each managed our racing. I was super eager for us to get on better terms. But it was he who made the effort for that to be possible." The tributes that poured in after his death confirmed exactly what kind of man Kyle Busch had become. Jimmy Johnson posted, "Kyle Busch wasn't just one of the fiercest competitors our sport has ever seen. He was one of the most talented race car drivers I've ever shared a track with. Kyle pushed all of us to be better. His passion, intensity, and love for racing were unmatched, and his impact on this sport will be felt forever." Jeff Gordon said he witnessed firsthand the passion and intensity Busch brought to the sport every single day, and that beyond the track, he loved his family deeply and was incredibly proud of Samantha, Brexton, and Lennox. Rick Hendrick said, "As much as he loved to drive a race car, nothing brought him more joy than being a husband, a father, and watching his son race." William Byron wrote, "Kyle was the best mentor you could ever have. He was incredibly unselfish, cared about his people and his family deeply, and helped shape my career to what it is." He is survived by his wife Samantha, his son Brexton, his daughter Lennox, and his brother Kurt, the NASCAR Hall of Famer who once told the world his little brother was going to be special. Kurt was right. Kyle Busch was the first active NASCAR Cup Series driver to die since Dale Earnhardt passed away on the final lap of the 2001 Daytona 500. He won 234 races across NASCAR's 3 National Series. He won 2 Cup championships. He came back from broken legs to claim one of them. He holds records in 3 separate series that may never be broken. He was 41 years old. If this story meant something to you, hit the like button. It takes 1 second and it helps more people find this. And if you want to be here every time NASCAR has a story worth covering, subscribe to the channel. We bring you the news, the facts, and the full story every single week. We'll see you in the next one.